Yeah, it is. Ladies and gentlemen, we're with the wonderful group that forms most of the Vacationers, and we're going to meet starting from my left to your right.
Hey, I'm Jeff Grace. I'm 1/4 the Vacationeers.
I'm Todd Berger, and this is actually all the Vacationeers.
Oh, okay.
This is it.
Yeah. But you also, first of all, before we talk about It's a Disaster, I want to find out how the Vacationers came about as a group.
Do you want us to look at you or in the camera?
You can look at me, and you can look at me through the camera.
Through the camera.
You know, it's like, yeah, but you can look at me. It's okay.
Can you guys introduce yourselves?
It's like, it's like.
I'm Kevin M. Brennan.
Hey, there's actually two people. There's two of us.
I'm Blaze Miller.
Hey, pleasure. Yeah.
So the origin story was that Kevin and I went to college together at the University of Texas, Hook'em Horns.
Hook'em Horns, yeah.
And we both worked at the student television station. I worked on a sketch comedy show, and he worked at the music show. And when we graduated, he produced my thesis film, and he was in some of the shorts that I did. And then when we graduated, I moved to Hollywood, California. I moved to Hollywood, Florida. I moved to Hollywood.
Big mistake.
I was like, yeah, there is a huge difference. Yeah.
Magic Mike.
Yeah, it's like, yeah.
Construction sites at night. Stripping.
Well, I thought maybe you.
Sites at night.
I thought maybe you went to dog.
And then I would strip during the day.
I thought.
A lot of bad career choices.
Bad choices.
I thought maybe you went to dog racing or something. I wasn't quite sure
That
about
was
how that
actually
works.
off-track betting. I couldn't even get into the dog racing. So anyway, I went to Hollywood because I got a literary agent I was writing, and then Kevin went to Chicago to do the Second City program, where he met these two jokers.
Yeah, we were doing all this. We were doing the Second City thing.
What was that like, by the way?
It was awesome. It was like those are good foundation for comedy.
Good training ground, absolutely.
Yeah.
They really turned. I was gonna say they turned comedy into sort of a cerebral exercise, but it makes you think about what's funny and what's not. And what kind
It was
of
the kind of thing where I was always aware of SCTV, and I was actually born in Chicago but moved away from Chicago when I was very young. But a friend of ours, another mutual friend of ours, we went there together to check out one of the shows and decide if we wanted to move to Chicago to take classes. And I'd never seen a live Second City show and watched it, and I was like, wait a minute. This is what Saturday Night Live is supposed to be. It's supposed to be hilarious, supposed to be smart, great characters. And then they did the improv set, which, if you've never been to a Second City show, at the end of every, the sketch show, they do improv for 45 minutes. And it's those are the top improvisers in the world. And it's hilarious. And I was like, they are making this up, and this is happening. I'm moving here. I'm going to
ask a question from an outsider's perspective, not being a comedian or an actor. How do you do good improv? How do you learn to do it? How do you,
There are, continuing this narrative, they all moved to LA to pursue careers as actors, and we all met up and formed a group. And we all first formed because they brought me in to be their improv coach. I've never done improv, I've never studied improv. I didn't understand that there are rules about saying yes and, about not denying, about there are things you need to know.
I just knew Todd wanted to direct something.
So they brought me in to be their coach for an improv group, and not knowing that there's actual things you're supposed to do. It's not just make stuff up. There are actual rules you need to follow. I was a horrible coach because I didn't understand this, and so I resigned and then joined the group and learned these rules. But to be a good improviser, I think you have to understand the fundamentals of these rules. If I say, hey, we're in the subway, and Kevin's like, no, we're not.
We're on the moon.
That's terrible.
Yeah.
You could never do that. It has to be hey, we're on the subway.
And it smells like rats died in here.
Yeah. So he just...
Oh, so it's almost siloed. In other words, if you have a subject, you have to stay within the subject area. You can't just say, hey...
Yes, and. So I say we're in the subway, he's like, yeah, we are, and he just adds something to the scene. Yeah. And then I'll come back and say, yeah, it smells like that because of the dead body under our seat. And we just
the one that I murdered 2 minutes ago.
And so we're...
So was that your girlfriend?
Yeah, exactly. You're improvising. You're in the scene.
Hey, not bad.
And my mom. It's really just support, I think, just in general, supporting who you're on stage with and kind of going down that road.
And there's different, in Chicago, which is kind of the birthplace of it all, the Second City is kind of the grand old dame. And there's also Improv Olympic, which is now called
It's Thick Crust in Chicago.
And there's also, the Annoyance Theater. And, in Los Angeles, there's the Upright Citizens Brigade, also in New York. And each, place kind of has their different theories. Second City's theory is work at the height of your intelligence. So everything you're improvising you shouldn't go for the easy joke, and it shouldn't be like, dick and fart jokes all the time, unless they're super intelligent dick and fart jokes. And then like Improv Olympic is all about support your team. Like whatever if Blaze wants to do a dick and fart thing all day, I'm with him, I'm doing it, and like that's what we do. And then there's different thoughts in other schools and that sort of thing. So.
Well, when did you get the idea to form the group? Because you're all obviously of like mind, and that's beyond the training. When I say like mind, I mean you click. There's a simpatico there.
Well, I think like we all kind of like got to LA and we struggled for the first like 6-7 months, just like, oh, this is a lot harder than you think. It's hard to get an agent, and you kind of everyone that has made it in this business has pretty much made it like kind of more through like making their own stuff. And I had kind of like I come from a marketing background. I used to work in advertising, and I was like, we gotta like I was sort of like was talking to these guys. I'm like, I think we should do a live show, but since this is like the beginning of video, I'm like, but if we showed videos at the live show, we can get like cast directors to come out and see us and meet us in person. But then we also have these videos that we can put on the internet that hopefully can get a wider audience, and sort of worked out.
Well, and you guys came from an environment in Chicago where you were doing 5-6 performances. They were all in comedy groups in Chicago, even outside of Second City, that was performing constantly. I did this show in college. Every week we were doing a show, and then I moved to LA to be a writer, and for 4 years I didn't do anything. I was writing every day, but I never did anything in front of a camera. I didn't perform for 4 years, and I really missed it. And when these guys all moved to LA, they were like, "So when are we going to form a group and put on a show?" It was kind of just like a given.
Yeah,
like, you're always.
It was automatic. At some point, you all had to like be. Yeah,
it's like to not be in a group putting on shows is kind of like unacceptable in a way, because they came from this environment where like everyone in Chicago who's doing improv has a group and is doing shows.
Because what's amazing to me in watching It's a Disaster and reading about you, but then meeting you all, is there's no cutoff between how you all relate in the movie as friends and how you relate here in real life. I mean, and as a compliment. I mean, it's you make it look effortless.
Well, we had
seriously,
We had a conversation early on when Todd brought us the script and said, "Hey, this is our next movie. Let's go do it." And we all read the script and we're like, "Yeah, this is awesome. This is the one we got to do." And at the time, we were like, by hook or by crook, we'll, go to somebody's house for the weekend, and we'll get our, the 4 of us, and Todd was going to play David Cross's role at the time, and, we'll get some friend of ours, like girls who are actresses, and we'll do it. And at that time...
Cute girls.
We definitely think we can make a calendar called the Vacationeers. We have like all the actresses we've ever had. We're like, we have us, so that's not bringing a lot of magnetism. Let's bring a hot girl in the video, and people will at least go for her.
And we'll use her as the thumbnail.
Anytime people talk about the stereotype of like that girl in the movies would never be like, we're perpetuating that 100%.
We've had that argument too, because Todd always be like, "You guys, we can't cast all hot girls. It's not believable." And I'm like, I think I don't want to be let's not break the mold. It's working for TV and film. Like, we'll let some other comedy group put the ugly.
But you guys went to Texas, right? Yeah, so there are a lot of hot girls. I went to UTA, so there are a lot of hot. Okay, so yeah.
You put your hair in rollers. You put on your makeup to go to the grocery store.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I mean that's another video. Yeah. So it's like yeah. So you could do it. It's doable.
In New England, it's where the men are men and so are the women. Right? That's what I've always heard. I grew up in the South, so
I grew up in New England.
But we had, to go back to that.
Sure, yeah.
We had
first movie's called The
conversations.
Scenesters. I don't know if you're familiar with that one. Yeah.
We'd had conversations of like, hey, let's stretch as actors, and like, in real life I'm a musician and I play music, and that character was not too much for me. But there was talk of like, Kevin, why don't you play more of the Shane kind of nerdy guy, and Jeff, why don't you play the rock and roll guy? And then as we got to talking to like Julia Stiles and the bigger actresses, and we were like, okay guys, this isn't the one where we need to really flex the chops. Let's just stick with what we know, and
when did you decide to go into movie making? Because I think you got a hit. Really seriously.
I think really I give like credit to Todd, because we like you said, we came from a we came from like a live comedy background. In Chicago, the detriment of that is that your thinking is so like, it's all about, we're going to do live shows until Lauren Michaels comes to a show, and then we're on Saturday Night Live. Yeah. Like that was the only career trajectory I could really imagine for myself. And then you move to LA and you're like, oh, I moved to LA, I got a job writing for Henry Rollins from a stand-up show. Also there's way different possibilities. And Todd, when he came into the group, was like, guys, I actually am a director, so like that'll help. And we're like, cool, whatever that director guy does, you can do that. And like, so we've sort of like, our film school has kind of been, well, you guys went to film school, but for me, it was like, my film school was like learning from these guys, like by watching the process.
That's all I've ever wanted to do since I was a boy. When I made my first
Are you still a boy?
Inside.
They were laughing. That's the only reason I cut the.
He's like a New England boy.
When I was 9 years old, I made my first movie with my dad's video camera, Dick Tracy versus Dr. Bubbles, and I played Dr. Bubbles. And then when I was and I made.
Did Dr. Bubbles
Where
win?
can we see this?
Yeah, I want. It's on YouTube. Oh man,
It's not on YouTube.
it's embargoed.
And I made movies every weekend with my friends. And then when I got to high school, I made features with my group of friends. This is actually like my 6th feature, you guys, because I directed 3 features in high school with my friends. One was called Movie Implausible, and it was like a satire of Mission Impossible. And so that's all I've ever wanted to do. And if anything, like writing or improv comedy is just like something I'm doing on the side because the end game is to make feature films.
I have to ask you, and this is what's impressive to me about the film as well is I felt the tension of not knowing what was going on outside, and I started thinking about it. I couldn't get it off my mind, and I realized you only use, a couple of sets?
Yeah, it was just all one house.
Yeah,
except
one
for
house,
the garage is actually a house across the street.
How did you get the idea to build this couple's dinner around a nuclear dirty bomb accident?
Well, the idea all came because I was reading an article about the George Romero 1967 version of Night of the Living Dead, which is, of course, a bunch of people trapped in houses. The zombies are.
Oh, she was doing her finger like this. I'm gonna take a little bit more time. Sorry, it's like, go ahead. It's like.
And I read this article about how it was public domain
Yeah.
because they forgot to renew the copyright in the 70s. So I had this idea that I was like, oh, I'm going to take Night of the Living Dead, I'm going to keep all the zombie footage, and then I'm going to reshoot a bunch of new footage of the people inside the house. So every time they look out the window, you cut to a scene from Night of the Living Dead, but everything in the house is black and white, and it's us, like on Couples Board Game Night in 1967, but it's a comedy. And we have all these relationship problems, but then there's a zombie attack, and everything goes to hell, but it's funny. Then I realized how hard that would be to fake perfectly a 1960s movie, but I still like that idea of taking a bunch of couples who are getting together for a trivial night, and something horrible happens outside, but it had to be something that wouldn't allow them to leave the house.
And you got Julia Stiles to play.
Mm-hmm.
How did that happen?
Well, I wrote the script, and I made it the disaster what the disaster is, so that they could not leave. They cannot go. If it's an earthquake, you can leave. But this is something that you have to stay in the house. So I wrote the script, and like he was saying earlier, the intention was for us to just go shoot it over a couple weekends, like in my house. But we read it, and Jeff was like, "This is really good. Why don't we send it to Julia?" We had met Julia a year before through a friend of a friend because we did a viral video with her, one of our Vacationeers videos. Mm-hmm. And she thought we were really funny, and she saw our first feature, The Scenesters, and thought it was funny.
And that's on YouTube? I can put a link up to it from here?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
Yeah.
Okay. So
And,
that link will appear right here, folks. Okay, cool.
Click.
Yeah, click right now. Yeah, cool. Yeah, he's like,
And
okay.
so
Great
we
point,
sent
great
her the
point.
script, and we just said, "Hey, do you want to be in this?" And she read it, and she was like, "Yeah, I love it. I think it's funny. I'll do it."
Whoa.
So
She really is like the reason this project got made, because at least in the big budget, sort of our level of big budget, we were gonna shoot it with no budget, and she got but she basically, what you don't realize, like celebrities, when they lend their name to something, it's really huge because that's a brand name, like Julia Stiles, and
Right.
and it literally like all these doors opened up for us the minute she committed her name to it, and she was like, "You guys use my name all you want. I got a 3-week window I can shoot this summer."
Wow.
And she's like, "And feel free to I'm in." As long as you
She was
guys
like your
raise the
angel
money.
investor in Silicon Valley in
Yeah.
a sense,
She's,
It's
no,
like,
and so
yeah.
without her, I think this, because really even through her, it was in a weird way, she was like, "I'm a big America Ferrera fan." Would you look at her? And we're like, "We love her too." And then so we reached out to her saying, "Hey, Julia wants to work with you." It's just makes everything a lot more cozy. And then America was the one that came up with the idea for David Cross.
Yeah.
And we were like,
Yeah, I was going to ask, it was my next question, yeah.
Yeah, America had brought up David because we had said to him, we were like, if you guys have any actors that you've worked with that you think are great and would really fit this role, and America brought him up, and we are all huge Mr. Show and
Yeah.
just David Cross fans in general. and we had never thought of him because, as written, that character that he plays is not really tight.
Yeah, no, he's
Yeah, so it had never really crossed our mind to think about him. But when she brought him up, we were like, yeah, if he'll read it and whatever. And I remember getting a text message from America on 11 p.m. on a Saturday night, a week later. She was back in New York, and the text was like, "David's in."
nice.
And the next day we were like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, he read the script.
He
He's
read
in."
it in 5 hours.
Well, and what's funny
5
is that you kind of have this. You always think that I guess every actor in Hollywood, they all know each other and they're all friends and they all hang out, right? But you forget that this is their job and they want to work with each other. So America's always wanted to work with David. They've never worked when would they have ever worked together? They've never done that. And Julia's always wanted to work with Mary. And so you start talking to actors and you realize oh, I want to be in your movie because I've always wanted to work with someone.
It's that creative energy that you get.
Yeah.
And that's,
it's sort of going back to if I really want to tie it up too neatly, it's the yes and thing of just and I think that's because Todd's a really collaborative director, and I think that opens up doors, Whereas if because a lot of directors be no, I'm deciding the casting, and wouldn't even open the question to the actor, because what if they came up with terrible ideas, and then all of a sudden you're stuck. That's the bat phone.
That's They're actually calling me because I was trying to drive off with it the other day. It's actually on YouTube. True story. True story. Yeah. It's
Hello,
yeah.
Vacationeers online.
This is good.
Yes. Sure.
It's for me.
He's
Take a message.
Right back if you can get him.
Take a message.
Security team. Okay.
Oh,
You're being taken out of the building again?
Sure. That'd be great.
happens. It's all right.
Okay.
It's
You
all
really,
right.
you really did try to steal a Batmobile, didn't you?
It's on video.
That was
Yeah.
Milo Jovovich's security team because they said it's Milo there, and we're moving up to a room. This is for security.
What?
Oh, it's just yeah.
You should have said
It's yeah, right.
She should be here.
Yeah. Well, since Emily was giving me the finger, not the martini finger. Yeah. Hey, folks, enjoy the movie. I really did, and I encourage everyone to go out and see. In fact, what's the distribution channel for?
For It's a Disaster?
Yeah.
We're currently in negotiations with a bunch of people saw it at the LA Film Festival. We were lucky enough to have a lot of good reviews and buzz, as
Yes,
they say.
yeah.
So we're talking with a bunch of companies right now. Things are going well, and hopefully in the next couple weeks we'll be able to announce what the deal is. But hopefully...
I look forward to that because you guys deserve it. It's great work.
Thanks, man. Thanks.
Hey, thank you all.
Yeah.
Great. Thanks. And I guess the security team is coming up.